Many years ago, when I sold everything to travel full-time, I was shooting in the dark with my packing list. There weren't a lot of resources online to help me, and I didn't really know what I needed. So I made some educated guesses and quite a few mistakes. Here are 7 things that I initially packed for travel that I've learned have no place in my luggage. Ultimately, getting rid of these things helped me go from having checked luggage to being able to travel carry-on only for as long as I like. I'm currently on a 4-month carry-on trip at a winter destination with the help of a few secret weapons like these. Stay tuned, there are a few surprises in here. Let's do this. Everything on this list, like most things when it comes to travel, is subjective. You may irrefutably need to travel with something on this list, and that's cool, it's not wrong. The trick is to know exactly why you're traveling with everything on your packing list so that you can make sure that you're not bringing it for nothing or for the wrong reasons. In almost every instance, these things that you think you may need will have better replacements or alternatives, which we will discuss. This list will give you all the food for thought that you need to make the right decisions. First up on my slightly contentious list of things not to pack is sports gear. Now, I'm an outdoorsy girl, and a lot of the things that I started traveling with reflect this lifestyle. What I didn't consider is exactly how or if I would use the stuff that I chose to bring. An example of this is the climbing harness and shoes that I started traveling with. It didn't seem like a totally ridiculous thing. If I met some climbers on my travels and wanted to go climbing, I'd be ready. Thing is, it wasn't such a priority in my travels that I was meeting climbers all the time. In fact, I never met any climbers, or if I did, I wasn't in a place that had climbing. Had I made it a priority to visit climbing hubs and connect with climbers in every destination, then maybe I could have justified the climbing gear. Maybe. Another example, I'm currently spending the winter in a ski town. My partner and I are considering taking a few days to fly to a different ski resort and check that out. Despite the fact that we have ski gear that we could bring, it actually makes more sense just to rent gear at our destination. While you might suppose that I would actually save money by bringing the stuff that I have here, I would also have to get special bags for checking them, and I'd have to pay extra fees to the airline. Although all of that might not quite add up to the cost of renting stuff at my destination, I'll also be saving the hassle of dragging my ski gear to and fro. And of course, I won't have to worry about it getting damaged or lost along the way. Now, I will contradict myself here a little bit and say that there are exceptions to every rule. I now travel with salsa shoes. I've downgraded from the heels that I used to travel with to these, which are a bit more travel friendly, but it's still a very niche item that takes up space. And because I travel with carry-on luggage only, space is like gold. However, I justify it because Latin dance is a key part of how I connect with people and socialize when I travel. So when it comes to bringing super niche items like sports gear, consider the theme of your travels and how much you can realistically use it where you're going. If you are in question, ask yourself if it would be better off to rent it at your destination rather than schlep it with you. I may not be bringing skis on my little side ski trip, but I will be bringing my layers. This is because I'm applying another lesson I learned the hard way. I'm not packing bulky clothes. When I started traveling full-time, I wanted to be ready for all climates and scenarios. So I had, among other things, a big sweater and a heavy coat, both of which were among the first things that I got rid of along the way. Now, if you're bringing checked luggage, you might have more space to bring along some bulkier clothing, which might make sense if you're planning on visiting a cold place. But I'm currently on a 4-month trip in a winter destination, and I still managed with carry-on luggage. So I'm here to assure you that it is possible to travel light and still be able to visit cold places, as long as you're not going on like a polar expedition or something that requires specialty stuff. First of all, if you do need a heavier layer than you are prepared to bring, you have options. When I found myself on a camper van trip through Australia in winter, and I sorely underestimated how cold the outback would be, I bought some sweaters, gloves, a hat, etc. at a secondhand clothing shop. And I just donated it back to the secondhand shop when I left. You can also borrow or rent stuff. A friend of mine was in Argentina and he took a trip to Patagonia. As a digital nomad who normally visited warm places, he was very unequipped for hiking on a glacier. But he was able to borrow a winter coat from a friend while he was there. Same thing goes for another digital nomad friend of mine who goes skiing every year and rents everything from ski equipment to jackets to gloves and more. He also has a secret ingredient on his packing list that I travel with as well. This is the secret to how I was able to pack my winter wardrobe into a carry-on case. You'll know from previous videos that I am a big fan of strategic layers so that you have the most flexible travel wardrobe. You'll also know that I make sure as many of those layers as possible are made of merino wool. And on this trip, they're made by Unbound Merino, who is sponsoring this video. A few well-chosen layers of clothing can accommodate more scenarios in style and comfort than one boring big sweater that you can only use in certain circumstances and temperatures. And merino wool is inherently a great insulator, so even a thin layer can be very warm. A couple of thin layers is even warmer. But when I'm active, like skiing or snowshoeing outside in the cold, I may also sweat in these layers. And merino wool wicks the sweat from my body and still keeps me warm, even if it's wet. And believe it or not, when I take it off at the end of the day, it doesn't smell. I can hang it up to air it out and wear it for another day, or 2 or 3 or more of active winter sports. Unlike some other merino wool brands, Unbound Merino doesn't look like activewear. Their simple, stylish, incredibly versatile clothes can be worn just about anywhere, and you'll look great. They have designs for both men and women, including button-down shirts, socks, underwear, and an amazing travel dress that I wear all the time in summer. I'm also super curious about the men's travel pants, which look really stylish, and you wouldn't suspect that they're made of merino wool. They also have some super luxurious styles, like this sweater that is blended with a bit of cashmere, so it is ridiculously comfy, and it can still be machine washed. For more information on the benefits of merino wool, check out my video that I made all about it, which I'll link below in the description and also in the first comment, along with a special discount for you to check out Unbound Merino clothing. My initial travel luggage selections were downright deplorable. I started out with a backpack, because that's what you do, right? I figured I was a backpacker, so I needed a backpack. Now, a backpack in itself isn't necessarily the wrong choice. There are plenty of travel backpacks out there, and they're great, as long as you're not traveling with too much, such that it's a pain to haul on and off your back. You'll be very agile on the road with a backpack. My specific choice of backpack was the problem. It was better suited for backcountry trips into the mountains, not for travel. First off, it was 65 liters, which is big, which meant packed full, it was heavy. This also means it was not carry-on size, so I had to check it when I flew, and there was no way to tuck away the straps to prevent them from getting caught and potentially damaging the bag on various conveyor belts. Also, it only had an opening at the top, known as a top-loading backpack, which meant trying to find anything in it was a nightmare. It was just this dark, cavernous hole that was a disaster to organize stuff in. I was constantly packing and unpacking it, and everything was a mess. There were also no carry handles on the side, so the only way to carry it by hand was awkwardly by the backpack straps. Now, you might say, Nora, duh, you had a camping backpack. That's not a travel backpack. And you would be right. But the problem is I still see backpacks like these on popular roundups of travel backpacks. Take it from me, these are not good choices. Now, generally speaking, I don't travel with backpacks anymore. I prefer rolling luggage, and then my personal item is a smaller backpack that's usually around 20 liters. But if you want to travel with a backpack, be my guest. I suggest you make sure it is a front-loading backpack with a U-zipper that opens up fully so you can access all of the contents of your bag easily. I'd also suggest sticking to carry-on size so that it isn't too heavy or bulky. If you need a backpack that's larger than carry-on size, then I highly suggest you get a wheeled backpack so that you get the best of both worlds. You can wheel it around on flat surfaces to save yourself the back pain, and when you need to be hands-free, you can strap it on and be on your merry way. I have a ton of content on my website, theprofessionalhobo.com, about backpacks, wheeled backpacks, and how to decide exactly what kind of luggage that you need, whether it's checked or carry-on, wheels or straps, and so on. I also have some specific reviews of various types of luggage here on this channel. So I'll leave some links in the description and the first comment to get you started on your own journey to choosing the ideal luggage for your travel style. Next up, the not-so-silent killer of luggage space, shoes. More specifically, hiking boots. This was another choice I made in the name of being outdoorsy and backpacking around the world. I mean, isn't that what all long-term travelers did? Had a pair of bulky hiking boots tied to their bulky backpacks? Yeah. Over the years, I came to learn that there are way better alternatives to hiking boots that take up less space and they're more multifunctional. But it was a process for me to get there. After my first couple of years of full-time travel, I'd officially had it with my hiking boots. I couldn't stand lugging these heavy things everywhere and only really being able to use them when I was actually hiking, which, all things considered, was not often enough to justify having them. So I got myself a pair of hybrid hiking shoes. They had a mid-rise, so they offered some ankle protection, but they were also lightweight and multifunctional enough to be worn in the place of athletic shoes. They were also all black and understated enough that I could pull them off in most casual scenarios, especially when paired with long pants. These did their job, and I eventually wore them through. But because of their bulk, I always had to wear them on my travel days, which I wasn't too thrilled about, especially when I was in hot climates and or ritzy destinations. My next pair of hiking shoes changed all of that, and they were one of the biggest reasons I was able to reduce the number of shoes that I traveled with and ultimately graduate from checked luggage to carry-on luggage, which I traveled full-time with for the next 2 years. Barefoot shoes. I went out on a limb and sacrificed ankle protection in the name of having something more streamlined for use in different scenarios, on and off hiking trails, as well as being ultralight and super packable. I got a pair of barefoot trail running shoes on clearance purely as an experiment. Turns out they totally revolutionized how I hike. I went from feeling like an uncoordinated elephant with heavy hiking boots to being super light and agile with barefoot shoes. I could feel the ground beneath me so well that I never slipped and fell, and I was able to stick to uneven surfaces so much better than ever before. I hiked hundreds of miles on multi-day treks through the Peruvian Andes with these shoes. I was a convert. A few years later, I discovered another barefoot shoe brand called Zero Shoes. I've tried a few pairs of shoes by them, and I love them all. I'm currently traveling with their Prio style, which, although I've taken them on some pretty technical mountain hikes, they're not specifically designed for hiking. I do, however, find them a fabulous all-round shoe for walking, running, working out, hiking, and casual wear. I have an episode about their Terraflex trail runners, which were my first pair and are fantastic for hiking, and another episode about these Prio shoes. So check these out if you want more information about barefoot shoes and how they can transform your packing list. So by now you will see that the theme of my initial travels was evident. I was doing my best to embody the backpacker image, since that was the only example I had of who long-term travelers were. In 2006, concepts like digital nomad and remote work weren't popular. But I did have a laptop, and I soon started developing an online career as a freelance writer. So, while I was busy hiking the wilderness with my climbing harness, my clunky boots, and my camping backpack, I figured, why not charge my laptop? So I brought a solar panel. Lucky for me, I did not get too far with this solar panel contraption. In fact, even before 3 months had passed, I realized the error of my ways and I was able to return it to the store for a refund since I was still in Canada. Now, admittedly, solar panels have come a long way since 2006, when they were not only large and unwieldy, but they also required a massive additional battery pack to convert the sun into a voltage that would actually charge your electronics. If you think your travels will take you off the beaten path enough that a solar charger power bank combo is a good idea, you can now find some much smaller, efficient devices that may do the trick. But remember, think hard before you pull the trigger. If you're not quite sure that it will be an essential part of your travel kit, try going without it. You may find a better way. I've got 2 more items on this list. One last shout out to my misguided backpacker identity, and one wellness item that I actually got much later on. And to be honest, sometimes I still miss it. First, my last backpacker item. A travel sheet. Conventional wisdom at the time dictated that hostel beds weren't always clean, and as a backpacker, I figured I'd be staying in a lot of hostels, so I would need a travel sheet. As it turned out, I stayed in relatively few hostels, given that I was on the road 365 days a year. More often, I volunteered or house sat and trade for free accommodation, but that's another topic. If I've piqued your curiosity there, I'll leave a link below to a book that I wrote showing you how I saved over $100,000 on accommodation in my first 10 years abroad by getting my accommodation for free. But back to the travel sheet. Once did I find it instrumental when I was on the Ultimate Train Challenge, which was this crazy stunt that I did where I did the world's longest overland route by train from Lisbon to Ho Chi Minh City, 25,000 kilometers in 30 days straight, all by train. On that trip, I found myself on some somewhat dodgy looking overnight trains once I got deep into China and Vietnam. And on one train, they didn't provide any sheets at all, and the cabin was frigid. So I was glad to have my travel sheet. But aside from that, never did I actually need it. So again, ask yourself what kind of travel you'll be doing and if you really need it. Because it may pack up small, but just like a mini solar bank and all the other small things that you might or might not use on the road, it all adds up. Last up is something that I use all the time, and sometimes not having it is a costly inconvenience. But again, if it means the difference between checked and carry-on luggage, it just doesn't fit. It's a yoga mat. I like to stay fit when I travel, and if there's a gym nearby that I can join for a reasonable price, great. But the easiest way to stay fit, regardless of where in the world I am, is with resistance bands, body weight, and a yoga mat. Now, before you conjure up images of me hauling around a giant yoga mat lashed to the side of my oversized camping backpack with my hiking boots dangling from the side, travel yoga mats do exist. And when I did travel with one, it nicely fit inside my luggage. Depending on what kind of padding you require, the thickness of travel yoga mats varies a lot, from thin towels to fully padded foldable mats. I personally like some padding for my knees, and I adored my thick foldable yoga mat, which I still use daily at home. But I did have to sacrifice it when I started traveling long-term with carry-on luggage. Even though I don't take a yoga mat with me, I still use them almost daily. Sometimes I'm lucky enough to get a monthly rental with a yoga mat tucked away in the corner. Other times, I just go out and buy one. They're common enough these days that unless I'm super remote, they aren't too hard to find. And they're not usually expensive. And also, having a specific shopping mission becomes a way of discovering my destination a little bit and seeing how people live and shop. So there you have it. 7 travel lessons I learned through 7 things that I stopped packing for my trips. Please share your own travel lessons learned through unnecessary items in the comments so that we can all travel smart in style. I'm Nora Dunn, aka the Professional Hobo, and I'll catch you next time.